we're gonna attempt to make what the Fast and Furious Jetta should have been.
In our last episode, we took on the monumental task of getting this modern GTI engine running without all of the electronics.
Once we thought we had it right, we pulled the engine out of this Mark III and pulled the engine out of this Mark VII, and now we're ready to attempt to swap this 2.0 turbo into that Mark III Jetta. This is our make or break point for this project.
Now, this swap hasn't really been done before, so we don't know what kind of other problems we're gonna run into.
This Jetta is from 1995 and this GTI is from 2016. The issue with mounting the engines is that older cars mounted their engines completely different than newer cars.
Older Volkswagen engines mount up kind of like a triangle. A transmission mount on the driver's side, an engine mount on the passenger side, and a mount in the middle at the front.
Current model VWs hang their engine mounts from the frame rails. You have your engine mount on this side, transmission mount on this side, and your pendulum mount, which keeps your engine from swanging.
So now we're going to see if and how doing all of this is even possible.
You gonna help? You're watching part 2 of our 5-episode series, sponsored by the folks at Liquimoly and Unitronic.
Mike, parallel to the ground here.
Oh, geez. That doesn't stay on, by the way.
Thanks. I know that now.
So, last you met us, we had removed the engine from this car, but I power washed this to make it look, I guess, presentable. I wasn't super meticulous about it, but it was kind of icky, so we got rid of a lot of that stuff. So before we start mocking up the engine to get it fitted in here, we gotta remove all this junk that we know we don't need. So come back to us, we're gonna have all this cleaned up.
Cool transition in 3.
It's finally time to test fit the engine, that's it. Other than that, we've just been screwing around from your eyes.
Oh man, we're pretty much done.
Fits in the hole. Fits in the hole, Jack. Now that we know our engine fits in our car, the next step is making custom mounts. Here are a few things we need to consider before doing that. So an axle comes out of a transmission, it's down there, it comes towards your wheel.
We're gonna use this pry bar to represent our axle. This is about where it should sit, and you can see this huge gap between the center of the axle cup and the end of my pry bar.
If you get the axle angle right, then you're good. But if you get it off, which means it could go too far back or too far up or too far forward, when the car starts driving, especially under a good amount of power, you'll snap axles left and right. This is the original engine mount from a Mark VII. It bolts to the side of the block like this and then mounts to the body over here. Well, friends, we don't have a place for this to bolt to. The transmission mount on a Mark VII would go right here and bolt to that, but that back there is a Mark III mount. In addition, they would have a mount right here in the front. Boop, boop, right here, that would mount. As you can see, we don't have a mount there.
The other thing we have to consider along with that is the positioning and basically tilt of the engine forward to back. Because if we have the tilt wrong, we're gonna end up starving the engine for oil in certain scenarios.
And we'll blow the engine up.
It's almost like companies spend millions of dollars for every car to design these kind of things. Here's 2 clowns trying to figure it out.
We're definitely clowns. I wish I had a clown nose. I could just boop right onto my nose right now. So this piece we cut off already. We have more we have to remove, but as you can see, it touches the transmission here. So we cut that off to give us the clearance we need. Now we need to go back a little further because for the correct driveline angle, this is in our way because this is gonna hit this. We need to cut that off. So we're gonna do that now so we can get a little more clearance. There we go. Originally when we went into this project, we assumed we were gonna have to fabricate all the mounts for this car because why would anybody have mounts for a project no one's ever done before? But we stumbled down a rabbit hole of parts and actually found some things that we think are going to work from our friends over at Fabulous. So we are going to unbox said mounting kit. Ooh, this is the front mount. So this is the bar that goes in the front lower portion to replace the factory one. This goes to the trans. This bolts to the top of the trans like this, boop. This is actually what made me find this in the first place. This, which they had for FSI cars with a DSG, looks just like what we need. It says DSG right on the thing of it. That's kind of awesome. Direct shift gearbox. Whoa. Look at that. This looks like a wiener. As you can see, the mount here is bolted to the trans there and clears our drive shaft here, and then mounts right here to the subframe with this adapter here. You run this bolt through, boop, like that, tighten it down, and then you can drop this thing in.
This is our passenger side engine mount, and this unit right here is our VAQ, the electronic diff, basically is how you think about it. So our mount bolts up to the back of the block, and unfortunately, it doesn't really fit. Like, I could probably work real hard to also not get it in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this axle cup out. I think that'll give me the clearance needed. Ooh. Our electric impact didn't have enough horsepower, so Paul and I had to tag team back again. Oh, yeah, that definitely would have needed to be unbolted. You can see that little dangle hanging out of the end here? That's the deep bolt that I took out. So we got the mount all mounted up. Now we are going to see if our VAQ actually fits.
It's not gonna fit.
Paul says no.
We're gonna see where the VAQ
Charles
is
says
the problem.
maybe.
Just to be clear, this is not Fabulous' fault. This mount is intended to work with a different application.
Normally, on this setup, without the most wrongest transmission for this mount kit, the axle cup, this guy right here would be here. So you have all this empty space, the axle runs right here. Paul's gonna try and create us some clearance.
Oh God.
There it goes.
It's kind of hitting on the top now too.
No, even if we can get it in there, there's no way that axle flange is gonna clear. We put that on pause for that stuff because we're not sure exactly what we're gonna do, and we're testing the front mount. So the front mount mounts like so to the engine and transmission area.
That is such a long bolt. Why
so-
is that so like that?
I don't know. I'll tell you what I do know. It's too damn long.
It's like these prices.
It's too damn high.
It's already out. Look at, I'm out the other side. Look at that. It's legitimately 4 inches, 12 inches of bolt. So it's 12
Gotta
inches of
be at
bolt
least
there.
2 feet of bolt.
Yeah. If you ever have a bad crank sensor and you do this swap on your car, it ain't coming out with this on there.
It's a Heidi boy.
This is why modifying your cars, boys and girls, with this type of stuff is not a good idea unless you do your own work. We have cut off these tabs on the back. These are standoffs to allow us to get it to fit in place. So my friend Charlie is gonna put that in here so you can see what kind of problems we got there. So as you can see, that's a problem.
We got 99 problems, and all of them are Paul's fault.
Charles and I have started to do some figuring, and we've been using this Sharpay. Is drawn on this mount all of the items we believe we need to, at minimum, cut out to make this potentially work.
We don't have any idea what we're doing, is
We
what
don't
he's
know
trying
what
to say. That's the short, too long, didn't read.
Yeah, true. I know you're thinking at home.
What the hell?
That's not what I was going to say, but you are thinking that too. You're worried we're removing the rigidity from this, and you would be 100% correct.
So basically, we're taking something that's like a pretty reasonably strong, nice piece and ruining it completely, because that's what Paul and I do. Took 2 good cars, ruined them, ruined this. F it. Who cares?
That's true. So here we go. We're going to go cut the out of this thing.
How's it going, Paul?
I'm not really loving it.
I think you're doing a really great job.
I'm not doing a great job.
I think you're doing...
Let me see this beautiful thing.
Look at this masterpiece. It's like, remember you had a little hole here before, and now it's a whole jagged cavern.
It's very jagged.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
So what we have laid out here is a progression of our engine mount. So let's look at that in a little more detail. Here's the original mount that's sent to us by Fabulous. And as you can see, we cut the living out of it, so that was unsuccessful. We then moved on to this cardboard aided design. This was an effort to manufacture something that would work, and I drew this up and I cut it out, and we did something like that, I think, or that, I think it was like that. That led us to this mount. We 3D printed this after it was drawn up and then bonded it all together so we could test fit for proper installation. It worked well enough that we were able to then make that out of steel. We cut that up, we modified it, we did some clearance things so we didn't need the hole there and all that jazz, and we have a final result. And when I say we, I mean my friend Steve, who's an engineer. He is our emergency contact in case we don't know what the hell we're doing and we need some help.
Now that we got that figured out, it's time to get it installed in the car. And this feels like a pretty good milestone moment and feels much better than that wiring issue that we self-induced earlier.
I'm gonna try and not get my arm cut off.
Please don't. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Right there. Right now, this is rubbing the brake lines. Play like a banjo. The concern there is the engine just goes and then it just rubs a hole right in your brake line.
Also, I'm not worried about it because Paul's gonna be driving it.
Yeah. So. He doesn't care if I die.
The original car didn't need brakes at all. So
That's true. The original car didn't have any brakes.
So we're already better than the Fast and Furious car. We're pretty much done.
We built a better car.
Wrap it up. Here is our cross brace. So this is where our front mount goes.
Wait. Let's try to get this thing
Well,
wiggled on here because it's gonna be a hell of a lot easier to wiggle on before it's bolted up.
I didn't know.
Hold up.
That's not doing anything.
Just wiggle up with me. Wiggle up. Oh, yes. Ooh. Look at that.
Got it right in the hole.
Now we can use the jack to jack us off where we need to be. Yeah. I'm in. I'm in with one. So we originally thought all of this you're seeing here, we were gonna have to like come up with on our own. And we are not, as you may have seen with the engine mount side, we are not skilled fabricators.
Yo. That's it.
Finished, swap done.
Nate, wrap up the rest.
Someone else did our fab work, we're finished.
I think next up is see you later radiator.
If we had done this with either a regular DSG or a manual, as you're probably gonna do,
We'd be driving this thing right now.
we would have been much further along tonight, but we're not. Because I'm stupid. This is our fan shroud. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Our fans need to be shrouded.
In mystery. Ooh. For some reason, I expected it to be aluminium colored.
It is not
That
aluminum.
looks pretty dope.
It is pretty nice. We have an upgraded cooling system. So I bought an all aluminum radiator for a VR6 Mark III. These items are something that Fabulous offers with their front end stuff. I'll give you a black ice there.
Oh my God.
Are you scared of that danger? I'll cut you. That's how I learned how to use a razor blade in the clink.
He also had a little Penguin air freshener when he was in the clink too. We also got a couple of fans. We have one Spall.
Oh, you're a fan at home. 13 inches of fan.
Big fan, small fan. So you can see the corresponding holes in our shroud.
That's a pretty nice radiator.
Well, I bought it because it was nice.
Well, I bought it.
We needed a quality cooling system for this very quality vehicle.
High performance racing machine.
Yeah, well, there's one thing that we know is Mark 7 engines, they make a lot of heat. They come with the heat, actually. I'm just gonna keep, yeah, you see that? M is for massive radiator. I think you got the right idea. Because now we got some built-in.
Yeah, we got double knee pad action.
Oh, and double knee pads.
Here.
What's happening? Are these standard? Did they do this to me? A Japanese company with standard screws!
This is.
They're not standard. Now my screw is stuck because I hammered it into it.
Right in the radiator. Should we be doing this probably not on top of this radiator?
Yeah, probably. You're probably right about that.
Bro, what did you do to this?
Bro, what?
Jesus Christ! They're probably this way for shipping, but
Yeah.
they need to go this way because they need to hang over.
So we're gonna show you now. Charles is gonna move that out of the way. I'm gonna put the radiator down. No, I don't think you've done something correctly.
What are you talking about?
Paul,
How could I have not?
if anything ever happens, Paul will just blame somebody else.
Instant blame to somebody else. Where are the bolts to bolt this to the radiator?
I think you put them somewhere where you shouldn't have.
I have. This mother. Okay. Do we maybe use the factory bolts?
This factory series, I don't know. You can do this my Craftsman quality bit. Oh.
I didn't touch it. My man. The harness central or the outside? And I think the answer is very much this way.
Pretty fancy, guys.
This is F to D. That's fresh to death. So this is the factory radiator fan setup from our Mark III. You can see how chonky it is. That is the new hotness. You want to flip them the other way?
Sideways?
Oh, yeah.
New hotness, old and busted.
And then one more. Oh.
New hotness, old and busted.
Yeah,
you
definitely need a new condenser.
That thing is so roached out.
Yeah.
The issue that happens with a lot of swaps is they don't have space in front of the engine, and so that's where these slim, very sexified fans come in play.
It looks so good. You know how like when you put on new parts, it's like, oh, this looks really good. Whatever that is, this is the opposite.
This would be like,
Because this is what...
So the reason why we're doing this is because I would like to one day have air conditioning on this car. We need to mount the intercooler and such. We need to have this condenser there so that we leave space for air conditioning at a later date. Now we're gonna look at mounting this intercooler. So Mark IIIs are not really known for having a very aerodynamic front or a lot of space for this. So a lot of people have to cut all kinds of stuff under here. So right now, I'm gonna take this bumper off and we're gonna look at what we can do. So before we mount that intercooler, first thing we're gonna do is get this radiator pushed back further. So Fabulous from their factory setup has a long mount like this because the radiators are angled in the car. And so they have a long one on this side, short one on this side. I asked them to send me another short one so we can push this whole assembly backwards to get as much clearance for our intercooler as possible. So there's our little guy. And there we go. Look at how much more room we have. So you can see we have a lot more space now. So this needs to get recessed into this bumper. So I'm gonna be cutting it here, 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 and at the other side, and then across to hollow this out and recess it in. Hopefully I don't f it up. I scared myself a little bit with that. I don't know how I scared myself. I knew it was coming. Okay, so I've been cutting for a while. I went through a bunch of cutting discs, a bunch of flap discs, and we're gonna test fit this intercooler to see how I've done. And I think we're in a good spot because I've had to go back and forth a couple times. Yes, look at that. So we got a little bit, maybe we could clear a little bit right there. And if you look right here, there's a little bit more we gotta take off, and that's kind of it. And if you look here, to put a hose on here, that this guy's gonna have to come off for show. So the biggest problem with these is a lot of people have to cut out all these like bars and stuff. And so what I'm trying to do is avoid all of that. You can see it's hitting right there. So I am gonna have to like maybe shave some of these off a little bit. I can't really go back any further because there's a condenser in the way. I think I did pretty good. We got a little more playing with it to do.
We are going to test fit up, you guys, you and I, are gonna test fit up some of these Unitronic upgraded boost pipes. Ooh, this is the hard pipe that goes over the trans, maybe? Yeah, look at that.
In typical pipe fashion, you must. It'd be like a lady in a tram. Oh, I thought we were yelling this end of the same one. I thought we were gonna do like opposing. Yeah.
Oh, we just basically made out. So. Ew.
What is happening?
What
are we doing with these?
Well, we're right now we're mostly just right now we're test fitting all of these. They also have some ports for water meth. Add water methanol injection or nitrous. Or nitrous. We have a lot of great experience with that. So I cut off the nubs on the front rebar so that we can get these hoses test fitted. I ordered these 180s because I knew at the end of the bar that this was gonna have to like go over here. So this is a Unitronic boost pipe here. This one goes up to the throttle body. We need that 90 here, but we need that 90 here, but we also need something to go over here. Now these are the Unitronic hoses that come with their setup. So we're gonna try to use these in the places that they go, maybe. So this is the boost pipe that goes over the trans and then down. With this 90 here, we're gonna be able to actually get that in there like so. 90 here, but we also need to go up and over because we gotta clear this radiator support here. So I have an idea. So this is the idea. I measured out, it looks like about a 45-degree bend is roughly what we need. But instead of me ordering a bunch of piping, we're gonna 3D print this so that we can test fit it just like that before we order and modify and do all kinds of cutting and welding. So here it is, our 3D printed part. Let's go test fit it. Let's see, I don't expect this to necessarily work. I just printed a piece that was like roughly longer than we needed it to be so I could chop it down. So let's test the other side. I think this will work on the other side too. I think this is roughly perfect. I'm gonna be doing some figuring. The figuring has been done on our boost pipes. Let's take a look at the passenger side. So on the passenger side, we have two 90s here and here, and then a 45 pipe that we had to cut and then get bead rolled to give it ends so that it doesn't boop, pop right off as soon as you hit boost. Here's our first boost pipe here. You can see there's some clearance issues around the belt up here, so we gotta be careful with that. Here's our 45-degree aluminum pipe that we have. It's just clearing over the bar right here, and we got enough clearance. This is our last one, and we have our clamps all in place. We have much better clearance on the belt side now that everything is kind of firmly in place.
On the driver's side, it's a little bit different. We're using some of the Unitronic upgraded boost piping kit. So it's a hard pipe that runs over the transmission to this silicone pipe right here. We have a coupler, and then this is a reducer silicone pipe that Paul bought. So it actually goes in pretty easy though. Good clearance, this looks pretty good. You did a good job on here, Paul.
Thanks, guy.
So up until this point, we've had very specific tasks to accomplish: getting the engine out, getting it in, and bolted up. And that's where we are right now. From here on out, it's basically a free-for-all with no specific punch list. So for example, we can't finish the wiring till we put the intake on. We can't really do the intake till we get the cooling system straightened out. So we're gonna have to sort of step all of these pieces in together.
For example, this intake from our dear friends at Unitronic. It's this beautiful carbon fiber. We gotta figure out how to mount this in our Mark III. We can stick it right in, and as you can see, it fits in the engine bay. We'll have to do some trimming of our core support here, but we'll be able to get air sucking in right from the top here above our radiator. So basically, to me, what we need to do is figure out the exact location laterally it needs to be, mark it, then take the core support off and make it work. Would you agree with that sentiment?
I'm gonna go back to, I don't really like it all that much.
We have appropriately marked these items. Let's see if I can cut on the marks. It's not a good mark, but Charles did it. So.
I did it, that's why it looks like trash.
If I did it, it would have looked not any better. I think I did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I would say so.
We made our first cuts here. We've retaped it. As you can see, we're hitting the throttle body over here. We stay grinding.
Yeah, steady grinding.
That's how we got here. We were grinding this.
What we were initially having the issue with is this duct was hitting the throttle body. That meant we needed to push this duct forward. That also aligned our hose real nice back here. So this is a stock Mark 7 intake that I think we've done a pretty good job of fitmenting onto our Mark III.
Now the way this would mount on a Mark 7 would be on these holes. You can see 1, 2, 3, there's grommets that go in there. Now from the factory, it mounts to this battery bracket. You can see 1, 2, 3. So that would flip on there just like so, and that's how it would be held in place. So I am gonna try to repurpose using this for this application. Obviously this won't work because it would have to be like way back here for this to work, and you can clearly see that's not gonna work. I'm gonna keep this metal structure in place, so I'm gonna kind of cut up here, around, and then back, trimming as little as possible for now until I figure out what we're gonna do. Got it. After lots of cutting, testing, fitting, this is our final result. So this bracket just pops in right here and here. We couldn't get the last one because over here, as you can see with our rat's nest, we have the fuse box and the ECM, which had clearance issues related to that last one. But let's be honest, this is probably better than probably 99% of intakes are mounted in cars anyway. Usually it's just like a filter that's just like like that. So the intake sits in the car roughly like this. So we have to make a bracket that will hold this thing up somewhere in this area. If you remember the engine mount fabrication, our buddy Steve, who's an actual engineer, helped me do this. I'm here to show you that you can do something like this. It might just take you a lot longer than a real professional like Steve. So I am gonna make this bracket. So I started out by taking this cardboard and made a mount that goes to this bracket here and then would hold up the intake right here. I roughly drew where the holes were and cut the cardboard in the appropriate place. Then bring it into a CAD program, which you can download and use for free, like Fusion 360, or there's probably lots of other ones. Once you spend lots of hours on the internet learning how to use this, you'll have something like this. If you don't have a 3D printer, or a friend with a 3D printer, or friends at all, you can use a site like iMaterialize. You upload the file, they 3D print it for you, and then they send it out to your house. Pay me, Materialize. You can then 3D print it. Inevitably, because I'm a terrible engineer, I had to modify the one that I 3D printed multiple times. Then I took all those drawings, converted them into a 2D drawing, and then sent them to a place called Send Cut Send. This gives you the ability to order each component individually out of any thickness and any diameters you need it to be, and then send it out to your house. Now obviously all those components come individually, and then we had to have it welded together, and here is our final result. I didn't weld this, by the way, because I'm not talented enough to do that. Now after all that work, we can mount our intake to our car with this one bracket. We're gonna call this a win. We're putting this in the W column. Doot, doot.
Nathan, do the animation for like a ting ding in a W column, lined up with the 800 L's that we've taken so far.
Okay, guess what? We have another clearance issue, and that's with our subframe. When you look at this pump for the VAQ diff, you can see it's a very tight situation there. That's my pinky, still can't fit in between. Keep in mind when an engine revs, launch, stops, it moves back and forth, front to back. That's why that's a problem. So if you look right here, we notched this out. So we cut this portion out and then flipped it around and then welded it back in place, kind of inverted. So now we can clear our pump right here for our VAQ diff. But if you would rock that, this thing would be banging right against the subframe right here. And we notched that out and still kept it strong by re-welding that thing in place.
Oh, he jerked it off. So next up, we're going to work on our fuse panel and get it fitted. We have to work around our intake, of course, and we want to retain all the factory Mark 7 mount ups. So what we found out we're gonna do is our fuse panel is gonna go right about here. Then our ECM bracket with ECM is gonna go right about here. It's gonna be sort of OEM minus, if you will. Look at that Waller.
This is to put threads in here. So this is an insert that we put here. And then you can see from the back side, we push it and it will squish. There we go, that's our fuse panel. It's looking pretty factory if you ask me. I didn't go through the whole mounting process for this ECM bracket because it would be boring, but this is the final result. After all the testing we went through and fitment, this should be the best location and is the same as the factory Mark 7 location.
Now, in order to make sure our engine, transmission, and axles are at the proper angle, we're going to have to cut our factory subframe.
Part of our process, we have to remove this cup right here. This is where the transmission mount bolts to, and it has to move backwards this way. So we have to cut the welds off the bottom, then slide it backwards and re-weld it. Wish me luck. No idea what I'm doing. There it is. Look at my great work. Now I'm gonna take this flap disc and clean it up. Here we go. Previously this was welded to the subframe right here. Now, what we need to do is move this further back like this to allow the axles to be at a different angle. Okay, so our transmission mount is located in place. We got this ratchet strap holding on right here from the transmission, then to the lift. We've unbolted this mount here and that mount there to allow us to twist the drivetrain that way. This drive flange has been moved further backwards on the engine and transmission, which is why, if you look right there, that's the old cup we cut off the transmission. It's kind of hanging off the backside of the subframe down here. We're about to weld this in place. Well, Steve is. In case you didn't know, kids, you're not supposed to look at welds in real life. It'll blind you. Okay, so that mount is already tacked in place. Now, Duncan's gonna finish off welding it all the way around nice. We are looking at our situation with the axle, and as you can see right in here, there's not a lot of clearance. Okay, so because this was too tight on that inner axle, you can see we've marked it to grind it down. So I'm going to take this down and try to get this as close as we can and trim a bunch of that off. To get this to clear our axle here, we had to remove quite a bit of material. And if you look that way, you can see only a little bit right there. So we didn't feel real comfortable with this being our motor mount because we've basically destroyed the rigidity of this. So we have this. This is a piece we're gonna weld in place. We cut that, I'm gonna grind it down and make it fit in place, and then you will see it welded in place, right? So there's what we did. Well, Steve mostly helped me. Actually, I take that back. I did a bunch of this part.
Next, we have to measure for some custom length axles, and we're gonna start by getting the vehicle at ride height. I'm just gonna measure from the top of the wheel to the bottom of the fender, which is about 4.5 inches. We also have to make sure we measure the splines for the axle where they come into the hub. So this is actually the one from the Mark 7, which I'm pretty confident is a different spline. So it won't fit. Now we gotta get it up. And what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to compress the suspension with the car up in the air so we can have it at ride height up in the air and take 2 more measurements. I'm gonna use this pole jack to compress the suspension. We also wanna be careful that we don't lift this up so high that the car comes off the lift. So I strapped her down with this ratchet strap, so ratchet. We're gonna get pretty close to where we made that measurement with the car on the ground, and then measure from the hub, which is over here, to the flange on the transmission, which is over here.
Charles put the tape measure through the hub for the axle all the way into the flange on the transmission, and we measured it where it meets the actual wheel bearing assembly. So 17 5/16 in freedom units, and that's our axle on our driver's side. So we sent those measurements over to Driveshaft Shop to make the custom axles. We're gonna go check out actually what that process looks like. Driveshaft Shop makes some of the highest quality drive shafts and axles on the planet. That includes awesome stuff like this carbon fiber drive shaft for crazy high horsepower applications. Because they're in our area, Lee was kind enough to show us around.
We make all of our axle bars here in-house. The majority of them are made from 300M chromoly. We machine them, we spline them, we groove them. They leave here for heat treating. We straighten them, we powder coat them, and then, yeah, we use them in the assemblies. And we make them in all different lengths. So custom applications, like I told you when we first started talking, 9 times out of 10, we've got something here that we can use. And if not, we just figure out when we're gonna be running that spline size next and we get it worked into production. But here's your Mark 7 and Mark 3 custom axles. Here's your new upgraded hubs. and a set of extended studs if you want to throw some slicks on it. This is the outer that fits that stock hub. Axles, the way that the torque travels, it travels outward, right? So whenever you see an axle break, 9 times out of 10, it's going to break the spline into the hub, as far as, you know, in a drag race application, right? And something that's got a lot of grip and torque, 9 times out of 10, as long as the bar and the internals are made from good material, you're going to see that break. I didn't want to take a chance with that with you. So that's why I said, let's go with the bigger hubs, being that this car is going to make a decent amount of power and you're going to be launching it. We went to, you know, a larger outer CV. It's a 26 spline versus a 22. It may not look like that much of a difference in diameter, but this is a better material. We use this on applications up to about, you know, 700-800 horsepower. You know, those hubs are just like the stock ones, except bigger spline, fit these axles, and should be good to go.
They have these extended lugs that are for strength, but also they fit with their custom hubs. So we can't use bolts anymore. We gotta press in these studs. To do that, we're gonna drop it right in the back. We're gonna use our socket, and we're gonna drop it into our press like this, and then use our press to push it down. We're ready to install these hubs into our car. We have new wheel bearings to go with them. These are torched, and we wanted new ones regardless. So Charles has this fancy schmancy tool that allows us to do this on the car. Otherwise, you'd have to take the whole knuckle out, bring it to a press, and press it out. But instead, I'm much more impressed than pressed.
Than depressed?
Yeah.
So we got to get this whole wheel bearing off. There was a snap ring. I already got the snap ring out. I'm going to put this through here, then this cup on like that. I'm going to tighten this nut here, and it's going to pull the whole bearing out into our cup.
Cool.
It's a super neat tool. You can buy them, shopdapp.com.
That's a lie.
Paul will bring them right to your house. He'll even do your wheel bearing for you if you ask him real nice. Paul gave me the smallest ratchet he has to do this with.
Yeah.
He's like, you look like you need to go to the gym. So since you won't, here's this. I caught it.
You need me to hold it?
Caught something.
So there's our bearing. Next, I'm going to clean this bearing well before we press in the new one. I'm going to clean that out so we don't get a bunch of dirt mushed in our bearing. I label them so I don't have to hunt every time. This one's Mark 4 in, which is the same as Mark 3 in. Then our washer. I will tell you, if you are the type of person that does any kind of press in wheel bearings, even one time, this tool is the best. Available at shopdapp.com. Paul will come to your house and do your wheel bearing for you.
It's not available.
If they go to the website and they see the option and click it, you will come to their house and do it for you. You just got to select it on the website.
If we offer these in the future, I won't be coming to your house.
That's just sliding there.
It's because I did a good job cleaning it. I can also tell you that anyone from anywhere north of like where we are watched me do this on a 1995.
And they're like, no.
They're like, I hate all of you.
So these are actually ARP studs that they gave us from Driveshaft Shop, and they're extended for all the race car boys.
Yeah, you could put so many wheel spacers on there.
You just put stacks on stacks, racks on racks.
Yeah, you could get like a triple flush kit from shopdapp.com. Paul will come to your house and install it for you. So next we're gonna press the hub into the bearing. This is the beauty of the newer ones that you just bolt in. You don't have to do any of this nonsense.
Look at that.
Look at that smooth,
Look at
look at this fluid motion.
Look at that stud.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was talking about the ones on the hub.
I always hate when you put something new on and then you're like forced to put something old and crusty up against it. So it's like you have this beautiful hub, and nice wheel bolts, and then Paul's head.
First fit of our fancy new axles. All right, here we go. Get her in the hub. Let's make sure she splines. Fits pretty great. I guess we know how to do measuring. I'm not really particularly superstitious, but like, let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Whoa, 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 whoa. That's my job, not to try and jinx it.
He's the superstitious.
I'm the superstitions. I'm not just regular stitious.
He's super.
I'm superstitious. That was also less funny than you guys laughed at. It just...
The opposite axle on the passenger side is the one that we're most concerned about because of the clearance issue with the engine mount. So we know it's going to be tight.
This is the moment of truth.
Like that?
Yeah, did I do that?
I don't
No, that doesn't look right at all.
look like it's gonna go that way.
So here's our issue. We have a Driveshaft Shop axle here. This is a factory Mark 7 axle. We engineered our engine mount to fit with the Mark 7 inner right here. The issue you can see is this one is thicker by about 12 millimeters. Problem is, we engineered this thing to have barely any clearance whatsoever, so this won't fit. So clearly the axle was wrong because the inner was too thick. So we boxed that up, we sent it back to Driveshaft Shop, and I asked them, very kindly, can you please help me with the situation? Today, we got back this one, and our dear friend Lee at Driveshaft Shop said, here's the best we can do. Now I've measured this in comparison to the Mark 7 one that we used for the R&D originally on this. This is only 1 millimeter bigger, thicker than the factory Mark 7 one, which means this one for sure will work. If they weren't able to do that, we were gonna have to re-engineer that engine mount, which is exactly why custom one-off things absolutely suck, and I should have done a better job of explaining to Lee how important this tolerance was when I had ordered this, but I'm stupid. I don't know if we might have to take the engine mount out. That's unclear.
Oh, it's so close. It's so close to going through.
I'm a little worried about getting it stuck really jammed in here. In an effort to be lazy, I ended up tearing this boot on this subframe. And then now I have to send this back to Lee again. Hey Lee, I'm stupid.
Part 2.
Hope you don't plan on servicing anything. Don't worry, this car is not hodgepodge together with a bunch of customized parts, so it's probably gonna be super reliable. There we look at that. I don't know if I'll be able to get the engine mount back in after this, but we definitely got the axle in, that's for sure.
We don't need no engine.
I don't know if we have space for all this. I'll figure it out, don't worry. All right, so if we look here, the good news is at least our axle does clear here, which was a concern. One out of however other many clearances problems we might have. So I have one axle bolt in. I finally got the engine mount in after a lot of finagling, and we're gonna rotate this around and see if it clears the whole way. It is clearing, but it is really close. Oh, I just hit something.
Yeah, you hit the...
Oh, the head of the bolt. Look at this. The head of the bolt is hitting the engine mount.
Nice.
So...
Just keep... It'll self-clearance.
I took the washer off. It clears. It's touching when it's clearing, but it works. And I call that a win in my book. I call it a win. Obviously, I'll need to get more clearance on those bolt heads, and that concludes our video. In our next episode, we fabricate a downpipe, make a custom fuel pump, mount our shifter, and try to start our car. Once again, big thanks to our main sponsors, Liquimoly and Unitronic. Also, thank you to everyone else listed here who has contributed to this project in some way. And if you want our shop DAP repair to build you one of these things, you can absolutely forget about it. They specialize in Volkswagen Audi repair, maintenance, diagnostic, and performance, and they are not going to build you a car like this one.